Yes, welcome to my office. I do not live on a boat, as many people seem to think so, but it's wonderful to be here. I've got such a soft spot for the whole ATO crew and Todd and everybody who's involved and everybody who's connected. So anytime I can play a role in what ATO is doing in the events and beyond, I'm always happy to do so. So yeah, we're going to talk about building communities that don't suck with email. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story as I go through this to kind of illustrate the journey that I've been through. And I'm hoping that some of this will be useful for your journey moving forward. Now, before I go on, I need to make something very, very clear. I'm not an email expert. Now, you may be a bit disappointed that this is slide number 1 of the deck, and this is a talk about email. But I'm not an email expert. I don't profess to be an email expert. And I think because of that, I've been able to go through a journey that's been a little bit different to many people. And I think I've actually learned some things that potentially could be even more valuable. Now, as I mentioned when I was kind of talking earlier on, I've rejected email marketing as a concept for many years. And the reason why is because I felt like email marketing was done by people like this, right? These really irritating marketing gurus who are always blathering on about how you can make $10,000 a day with 2 hours worth of work. If you go through these 5 simple steps, then you'll be able to do this, this, and this, and this. And it's just so much junk. And Mauricio is the neighbor of this individual who I'm not going to say his name, but this is actually a real marketing guru. And your inbox is filled with all this crap, like, just beautiful looking emails. Like the one on the left is from Fleming Steakhouse and the one on the right is from Newegg, right? They don't actually give you anything of any value. They just it's just an ad that designed to get you to click on something. So what happens is your inbox ends up looking like this, right? I first gave this presentation a couple of months ago. And those of you who are eagle-eyed will notice that I subscribe to both Joe Biden and Donald Trump's email list, right? And if there's one thing you should never do is subscribe to Donald Trump's email list. I'm not going to get political about things, but wow, just wow. That's all you need to know in terms of what they send out there, okay? But we get all of this junk. So what I want to cover in this session is 4 recommendations that I've learned that I think will be useful in not just sending all of this junk out and actually sending content that people really like. Okay. Now, the story goes back to when I released this book called People Powered. So this came out in November last year. I'm really proud of it. It's been doing pretty well. But a year before that, I'd hired an agent, I'd built a proposal, and I was going through the act of kind of reaching out to publishers. Now, this is a business book. And, Todd mentioned earlier on my other book, The Art of Community, which is published by O'Reilly. So that's the tech press is much easier to get a book out. Like you can have a conversation with O'Reilly, a relatively short proposal, and then boom, you've got an agreement and you can create your book. With the business press, you have to go through an agent, and the proposal was like 38 pages long. It took 6 months to put the proposal together. It's a really involved process. And when I started talking to some of these publishers, they always asked the same question, which was, how big is your email list? And my response was this: email list, eh? Okay. Sorry, I didn't hear that. What, how big is your email list? Sorry, I didn't hear you. The line must be a bit scratchy, Jono. How big is your email list? It's like, well, 400. Now, what I'd done is I'd put an email opt-in box on my website a couple of years previous, and just so people could sign up and get email. And I was like, okay, that should do it. And then I never really did anything with it. So people would sign up and they'd never get any emails from me, which is pretty much pointless. And then, so I kind of discounted this for a long time. I told them HarperCollins agreed to do a deal with me to kind of put People Powered out. But I'd always thought about the importance of this email list thing. And then I was chatting to a guy who I got to know who's a bit of a marketing genius who shall remain nameless. But for the sake of this argument, it's going to be Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. And he said to me, email's fine. People just suck at it. That's the thing you need to realize. People really suck at email. You get a lot of junk. And I was thinking, that's really interesting, that the medium is probably valuable, but we need to take a different approach to how we use it. Okay. So this is when the experiment began. So what I did is, and this is the actual data from my email automation platform, which is called ConvertKit. So back in March, around the time that the pandemic was really kicking off, especially here in the US, I moved my 400 people from MailChimp over to ConvertKit. And these are the people, like I say, I'd really done nothing with. Most of them were, with email, if you don't keep emailing people, then they turn cold, and then they never read your emails. So this was, frankly, 400 people who were probably not going to read my emails anyway. And then what happened between then and when I first gave this presentation, which was in October last year, I grew to about 1,600 email subscribers, something like that. So quite a lot of growth. And what I want to walk through is what I did to kind of get that growth. But more importantly, growth is one metric of success. But I think what's the real metric is whether people are actually reading and getting a lot of value out of your emails. And there's 3 metrics that we need to care about when it comes to this. So, I can see Nancy's saying, consider a presentation on various ways to publish a book, online or hard copy process. I'd be more than happy to do a session about that if there's interest, by the way, because writing a tech book and writing a business book, like I say, and writing an ebook are very, very different processes. So I think it's a great idea, Nancy. So anyway, so there's 3 kind of metrics of success here. The first one, which is not really metric of success, is how many emails you sent. So at the time that I first gave this presentation, I'd sent 37,824 emails. Now, when it comes to measuring email efficacy, open rate is how many people actually click on the email in the inbox and open it up. Okay, so the subject is compelling enough, your reputation is compelling enough that they're willing to actually click on the email. And most people don't click on emails. Okay. Now, the industry standard recommendation for what's good is about 23%. Now, click rate is where you've got a link in your email and you want someone to click on it. So it could go to your website, could go to a blog post, it could go to a special offer of something you're selling. And then generally the average click rate that's good or industry standard is about 2 to 4%. So we'll go with the 4% upper region. So when I first gave this presentation back in October, my open rate was 39.20%, and my average click rate was 7.55%, which is nearly double. Now, if I load up ConvertKit right now and just take a quick look at where things stand today, my open rate today is 41.37%, which is nearly double. And then it's gone down a little bit on click rate, 7.48%. Okay, so without wishing to sound braggadocious, I would argue that my emails are working because the metrics are telling me that it's significantly going above and beyond industry standards. So why is that? So the first recommendation here of 4, share content people actually want, right? This might seem obvious, but it's really important. Like, how many of you get emails like this? Again, it's just junk. So when I started thinking about this back in March, I was thinking, okay, what do I like to read? Like, what do I find interesting? And I found a couple of examples. One is from an organization, or from a guy called Ryan Holiday, who wrote a bunch of books on Stoicism. And he's got a newsletter called The Daily Stoic. And he sends just Stoicism is essentially an ancient philosophy for how to deal with difficult challenges and how to kind of build growth. And I'm a big fan of it, big fan of Stoicism. It's not a religion, it's more of a way of thinking. But you can see this email. Look, it's got real content in there. It doesn't tell you to click on a link and go to some random website. It's got links to other things that you can go and find out about. It's actually valuable. So I'd actually sit there and click on them and think, oh, this is kind of useful. Another example is the screenshots that you're seeing on the screen here are from an email service called Superhuman, which I'm a big fan of. Love it. And when you sign up to Superhuman, you get these automated emails from the CEO, Rahul Vohra, which walks through tips and tricks and recommendations for how to use Superhuman and the features inside of it. So you can see here, it tells me, how to do introductions really quickly. And that's actually a little animated GIF that you can see in the middle of this screenshot. Ordinarily, you'd see it animating in your email. And it shows you how to use that feature within that tool. Okay, so again, it gives me something practical that I can get within my inbox. So I started doing something similar. And these are some of the emails that I started putting together. The one on the left is a podcasting quick start guide. I put together a 10, 12-page document for how to start a podcast because I've been podcasting since 2004 and sent that out. The one on the right is about how to get started building a community. And that little diagram in there is from People Powered. Okay. So sending people real content. Okay. When I started experimenting with this, I started looking at the data. And, within ConvertKit, it shows me the open rate and the click rate. And as you can see, these are the industry averages or the industry guidelines, 23%, 4% for open and click rate, you can see that, again, these emails will get in significantly higher rates. Now, there were a couple of lower ones in there, like the Salesforce one, that would tell me, well, there's nothing, the value, the link in there is less valuable than some of the other links, but I can learn from this about what people like to click on. Okay. All right. Now, as Todd mentioned, if you've got any questions, feel free to get them into the chat as I go through this. More than happy to answer them. So, second recommendation here, don't hassle people. Now, how many of you, right? I know I can't see you doing this, but it doesn't matter. Put your hand up if you use LinkedIn. Okay. Put your hand up. I know some of you don't have your hands up right now. Put your hand. Oh, wow. I can actually see raised hand on the Zoom thing. That's quite cool. Wow. You're actually putting your hands up. I've never seen that before. My other screen here is just covered in, it says, blah, 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 is raised hand. So lots of you use LinkedIn. Okay. I'm going to ask you another question to ask you to put your hand up. How many of you get spammy direct messages from people in LinkedIn where they keep messaging you, even if you don't respond, asking you to get on a call or buy their product or do this particular thing? How many of you get those kinds of things? Okay. I can see loads of hands coming up now. This is really annoying. Okay. This is an example of one that I got right from some marketing specialist. I've blacked out, X-File style. I've blacked out the person to protect their privacy. But, they said, I saw your profile, thought I'd reach out. We recently launched virtual sales, blah, blah, blah. I didn't respond. Thanks for connecting, Jono. I'm always looking for ways to fuel your pipeline. Would you care to chat? So the first one came in on July the 15th. And then let me move my mouse, July the 15th. And then, we had, July the 16th. No response. And then a little while later, July the 21st, and look how it kept coming in. I didn't respond to any of these. And I actually I didn't do you unfriend people or deconnect people on LinkedIn? I didn't unfriend them, I guess you could say, because I wanted to see how many more messages came in, and lots more messages came in. Let us be very, very, very clear about this. This is spam. Just because you accepted them as a connection doesn't give them a right to just spam you with junk. Okay. So, it's critical that we don't just not hassle them, but we also don't overwhelm them with information. So when we talk about overwhelming people, this is another example here. So I saw an ad on YouTube for a book that I thought was very interesting. I went and signed up to get a couple of free chapters from the book, and then I received all of these emails. Okay. And look at the dates on them. Look how often, almost every day, sometimes twice a day, I got emails from this guy. Okay. It was just ridiculous. So I sent him an email, because I'm very much of the viewpoint that people generally operate with good intentions. I think one of the biggest downsides of the current climate of conversation that we have in the world is that everybody looks at the words that people say, and very few people look at the intent behind the words. And often the intent is innocent, but the words that come out are ill-advised and poorly chosen. So I sent him a note and I said, I just wanted to drop you a quick note. I love the spirit and focus of your work, but this seems like overkill. All these emails. Email is a powerful medium, but it can be overdone. And if I were in your shoes, I'd dial the cadence back a bit. I wouldn't want you to overwhelm potential buyers. So just, giving him some really practical feedback. And I got crickets. Oh, sorry, I'm English. Crickets. Okay. It was no response. And a lot of email marketers think, okay, we've got to overwhelm people. That's just how you kind of get things done. So the way I do it, right, this is again a screenshot from my email platform. I send out my automated emails about once every 4 days. I found that that's regular enough that you can keep people engaged, but not so often that you're going to annoy the heck out of people. All right, so let's now talk about investing in your audience. So this is really, really important. Again, how many of you get messages like this, right? Now, I love Waves. They're a company, an Israeli company that builds amazing plugins for digital audio workstations. I'm a musician. I've got a band called Baron Carter. We've got our brand new first release coming out actually in a couple of weeks. And they make digital audio plugins. But this email is junk, right? It doesn't tell me anything. It just says, we've got sneak peeks. Click here to go and find out more. It's a billboard ad. Now, the way I like to think about anything, but especially email, and this is an analogy that I remember seeing on some webinar, and I forget. My apologies to whoever came up with this, because I forget who actually did this. But this wasn't, I didn't invent this. Is that with content, you want to think of it like a piggy bank, right? So if you've got a piggy bank where you put the coins in, you save the coins, and then you empty the piggy bank, and you can use the coins to go and buy something. The way in which you should look at it is that you should fill the piggy bank up regularly with value. Okay, so you regularly putting new material into the piggy bank. And this is one of the reasons why when people sign up for my email, I send them so many different things. I send them, best practices and recommendations, free book chapters, access to free training, special offers. I ask, if people have got questions or concerns, I respond to those questions and concerns. I really want to build a relationship with my audience. Okay. So if you keep investing amazing content into your audience, right, they are going to think, wow, okay, I'm getting a lot of value out of this particular person who's sending me this material. Then when you request something from them, if you ask them to buy a product or to come to a webinar, or you ask them to create a bit of content for you if you're building a community, then they're much more likely to respond to your ask than if you didn't invest so much into so much value into them. And I tend to think of it as an 80-20% rule. At least 8 out of 10 emails that you send to people should be giving them amazing value that they love. And if you send 2 in 10 emails, which is asking them for something or requesting something from them, then I think that's okay. Okay. So again, don't send this kind of stuff. Send this kind of stuff. It's going to be much more valuable for your audience. You're investing in their success. I'll give you an example of this. It's happened actually towards the tail end of last year. So actually middle of last year, I just dropped a note out to my audience. And I just said, hey, what's in your mind right now? So I sent this to every single subscriber that was on my list back in July. And it literally there's no link to click on, just hit reply. And I got a ton of responses. People who were concerned about their jobs and their careers. They were wrestling with their family issues. They were trying to learn how to build amazing communities and were struggling with some elements of this. And what I did is I went and responded to a whole load of them by just literally hitting reply and sending a response back to them. And a lot of people replied to that and said, I never expected you to reply. Like how many times when you get an email like that, first of all, we don't tend to get many emails like that, but how many times do people actually reply? I think sometimes people don't realize that there's a human being on the end of this. And I think this is really important. Jen says, asks, did you promise to reply to everyone? Did you reply to everyone or just share? I very explicitly said that I wasn't going to be able to reply to everybody, but I think I replied to about 60% of people who sent me responses. I basically just sat there for a couple of hours, and some of my responses were fairly short, and some of them just sent links out to other material that might be useful, but they got a personal reply. What I also did is I used a service called Loom, where for me, I much prefer talking to a camera than typing, because I type like I'm just not good at typing. I didn't do Mavis Beacon's typing. Remember that? Is that still around? Maybe it's still around. So I use the service called Loom, where you can just record a video in, a very short video, and then it gives you a link, and then you just send them the link. It's kind of like a more efficient way of YouTubing, I guess you could say. So as you can see here, these are a bunch of examples where I just go and respond to a bunch of people, and people love that as well. Another example of building a relationship with my audience was that I launched the People Power Book Club. This was actually an idea from a friend of mine called Monica and another friend called Bill. And we ran an 11-week People Power Book Club where people read a chapter a week. And then I did like a Q&A session on the Tuesdays. We did a study group session on the Thursdays. It was really fun. And lots of people went and signed up for it because, again, it's an investment in them. It's investment in giving them value that's going to be useful to them. Didn't charge for it, just a means of building a relationship with my audience. And then the final one, I think this is the fourth one, is that to engage like a human being. Again, I don't wish to keep railing on Flemings and Newegg, but this isn't how human beings talk to each other, right? This is how marketing weirdos communicate to people, okay? Nobody wants this. And there'll be all kinds of justification from plastic head marketing consultants that this is the way to do it. But I'm not talking about clicks. I'm not talking about revenue. I'm talking about what human beings want, how people like to engage. Okay, these kinds of emails are sent by this guy, right? And I don't think people want that. What I wanted to figure out is what kinds of emails should be sent by this guy, right? Very different. Okay, so here's the thing: this guy tends to use marketing hacks and tricks to compel you into clicking on a link or buying a product or something along those lines. Let me give you an example. You know, I went and searched in my inbox for Jono, my first name. And this is a common technique that marketing guy uses, is putting my first name into the subject line. Okay, this is something you can automate. You can do it in almost any marketing automation platform. And the logic seems clear, right? People respond to their first name. If you're walking down the street and someone shouts out your first name, you're probably going to turn around. Why don't we put that into the subject line? Therefore, they're more likely to click in the subject line. Therefore, you open up your click rate. Therefore, you get a better level of, open up your open rate. Therefore, you might get a better click rate because people are actually seeing the material. That's the theory. But the reality is no one on earth sends an email to somebody and puts their first name in the subject line. How many times have you received an email from somebody with your first name in the subject line? I can't think of one time in my life when anyone's ever done this to me. And I quite like this because plastic head marketing guy, now I know that if I see any email with my name in the subject line, it gets deleted. I don't even open it. Don't give them the satisfaction of opening it. Okay. It's such a ridiculous concept, but it makes sense in marketing circles where they kind of get together and come up with all of these tricks and techniques. And my view is, don't cheat the person who's reading your email. Give them actually good stuff. Have a relationship with them. Talk like a human being, and then you'll get better results. Okay? Don't use these tricks and techniques. They may work in the short term, but you're compromising short-term results for long-term value. And I think we should always be looking at the long term. You know, I go back to something that Seth Godin says. Seth Godin, this is one of the most valuable things I've ever read in my life. Seth Godin has said, if you're of service to other people, then other people will do great things for you. Okay. And I totally believe in that. Give people amazing content, invest in their success, and then they're going to be on your side. They're going to be more likely to engage with you. Okay. So there's some subtleties, I think, in how we should do this. And this is inverting, frankly, a lot of the marketing theory that's out there. So the first thing is, and this is a typical kind of email that I would send out. First thing is, have a normal subject line. Don't put loads of capital letters in there. People don't send emails where they capitalize every single word most of the time. Most people are sending emails that are out pretty quickly. So send a normal subject line. No clickbait. Don't use the word free, special offer, this, that, and the other. Gmail's going to catch all of that as in their spam filter. Just send normal subject email lines. Second one, I send emails from me. Jono@jonobacon.com is my real email address. It's my live email address. It doesn't go to my assistant. It goes directly to me. And that's by design. I want people to be able to hit reply and it comes straight through to me. Okay. And I say that actively in my emails. Often the very first email you'll get when you sign up for my email is, you know, I want to know what you're working on or what you're concerned about. Just let me know. And then I can see it and I'll try and respond. Now, again, I try to set expectations. I can't respond to everybody. I get hundreds of emails every day. I can't respond to everybody, but I try to get through a big chunk of them. The content's written personally. It's written like a human being. You know, I don't like jargon and buzzwords, and I really don't like people who overuse acronyms. Oh, well, I was talking to the LT and the DRI was saying that we should be talking to the EB. And when the EB learned about this, then we needed to check into the OKR. And then from the OKR, we were able to define the KPIs. It's like, no, talk like a human being. Don't talk like a robot reading a script. Okay. We need to offer really practical value. Like, put it in the email, put value inside of the email. That's what people actually want. They don't want to click on a link to go to a blog post. And I know why people do it, right? They put links in the emails to click on the link to take you to a website, because the website is going to be having a pixel or Google Analytics on here. And then they can remarket towards you. They can retarget you with advertising, all those kinds of things. Okay. I'm so reassured that, looking at the chat, that you folks all agree with my ranting about marketing, by the way. I realized partway through some of this, I'm maybe coming across as a bit strong. So thank you, by the way. That sounds like we're all on the same page. All right. And then plain text, I actually really, experimented with this. I started sending out emails that were beautifully formatted, and my open rate and click rate went down significantly, especially the open rate. And I think it's because if you've got HTML content inside of emails, then Gmail knows, for example, it's probably going to be junk, and it'll put it in the promotions folder or the updates folder, or even in the spam folder. So just plain text emails, just send them out. Yep, they don't look very sexy, but that's cool. So I just want to summarize this, as we bring this into the finish line. So track your metrics carefully, focus on open and click rate. Those are the two most important ones. And look at those on a daily basis. Like, I like to open up ConvertKit, for example, and look at my email and say, okay, well, I'm getting a lower click rate on this one. Why is that? To give you an example, when I started doing this, I found out that when I attached templates that went out to people that they could use to go through a task that I put in the email, they got much higher click rates, because people like to receive things via email. When I included embedded videos in emails, and it's not actually an embedded video, it's a picture of a video that links off to YouTube, because you can't embed videos in emails, you got much lower click rates. And I learned, well, people just don't really want to click on a video link inside of an email. So your metrics will tell you what kind of content resonates. Share content that people really want. Send them things that you can help them with. Think about who your audience is, what they care about, and what their pain is, what they struggle with, and then give them that. Give them a lot of that really valuable material. Don't hassle people. Don't send them emails every day. There's this one guy. I'm just trying to think of who it was. I do remember who it was, but I'm not going to say his name. He was saying in some marketing class about selling people via email that you should send them on the final day of a sales campaign. You should send them 6 emails. And that to me, in one day, and that to me is just absolutely ridiculous. And again, that might work in terms of, you may get some short-term results. Some people will respond to that, but so many people are going to get annoyed by that you'll lose the long-term value. Don't compromise the long-term relationship for the short-term results. Invest in your audience. Give them great content, like we've already talked about, and talk like a human being. Don't use jargon, and don't use junk, and don't inflate your results and all this kind of stuff. Just really focus on the right things. And then the final thing is, have drink some gin. Gin's good it's good for the liver. I'm not a doctor. Don't take medical advice from me, but it should be good for the liver, right? Mark says that you've got some great gin for me when I next come to NC. I would love that. Peter is asking, gin straight? No, Peter, no. Only the great unwashed will drink gin straight. It should be banned. If President Bacon became a thing, which would be awful, I would ban 2 things. I would ban people who need to drink gin neat, because it's an affront against the humanity. And anybody who doesn't use their turn signal when driving on a freeway is immediately put in prison. All right. Just before I wrap up, I just want to mention People Powered. This is the book that I mentioned earlier on. I'm really proud of it. Thank you so much I know many of you picked up a free copy at All Things Open. The last time we had an in-person event, and or maybe the time before that, I think it was the last time. And I know many of you have read it and have enjoyed it, and that's wonderful. Thank you for those of you who supported it. 5 stars on Amazon and Goodreads. It won a Business Book Award last year. It's been a bestseller. I'm really proud of it. I want to talk about one quick thing that you might be interested in. So I'm going to be doing a webinar, which is going to be on Tuesday, the 16th of February. Oh, geez, I put the wrong date in there. It's 2021. It's not last year. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific. And I'm going to walk through how to build great content. So we've talked a lot about email in this session, but I'm going to broaden that out and talk about how to make amazing YouTube videos and blog posts and run great webinars and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to walk through a 5-stage process that I've developed over the course of my career for how to put together a content strategy, how to make content that your audience is going to love. And we focus on the pain points. That's the key here, is don't focus on new things that your audience can do. Learn what sucks about their life and focus on how you can help it to suck less. Okay, so we'll be digging into that. I'm going to talk about which content mediums are going to be best for you, some recommendations about how you pick a content medium that's right for you, how to tune and optimize your platforms. So how do you make sure that YouTube is set up correctly? How do you set up your blog correctly, for example? How to put together an editorial calendar to build a predictable flow of content, which is critical. How to brainstorm topics, ideas, and content. Brainstorm. See, this is what happens when you add this slide in at the last minute. How to create compelling dynamic copy and content, and a whole load more. So I'm including this. There's going to be a downloadable editorial calendar. There's going to be a tips guide that I'm going to send you via email, a bunch of additional training. I'm going to send you some free chapters from People Powered, as well as the audiobook chapters. It's going to be a lot involved. It's completely free to go to. So if you go to jonobacon.com, /webinars/content. I'd appreciate if someone could pop that link into the chat so it's easier for people to click on. And with that in mind, thank you, Samuel. And with that in mind, I am done. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let me know if you've got any questions, and then we'll dig in. Thank you, everybody. There's a couple of Q&As in the Q&A box from Evan, which I think we should probably quickly run through. Sure. The first one, which I think is more for you, Todd, is what is the cost of posting and opening in open source jobs?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Evan. It's free. It's free. Now, again, it won't cost you a thing. All you need to do is create a very quick profile. Probably takes less than a minute to do it. We do ask for some very basic information. The cost of posting is free. We do, monitor the site. So, please don't, I'll say, abuse it. Code of conduct applies and things like that. I know all that goes without saying, but it does bear saying publicly because, we're very adamant when it comes to code of conduct and, not abusing opportunities and things like that. I'm not in any way implying that you would. I know you won't. But anyway, I do at least want to get that out there. But to answer your question directly, it's entirely free, won't cost you a thing. And what you'll see with open source jobs coming up is we'll engage in some expanded marketing initiatives here very soon. So you'll see some open source job stuff come across social media and across some other platforms and ways of communicating here very, very soon. So we're going to expand the scope of the job site soon, but it's 100% free.
Okay, there's two more from Evan as well, which are for me. So the first one is, what tools do you recommend to test emails so they don't get flagged as spam? So I'm going to go back to not being a marketing expert, but I'm going to tell you what I've learned. The first thing is there are certain kill words that you shouldn't put into subject lines in emails. Don't put the word free in a subject line, for example, or the word offer, for example, because they tend to trigger not necessarily a spam filter, but it'll put it in the promotions and the updates tabs in Gmail. The thing that is primarily going to impact spam is if you're sending huge swathes of email that's getting a very, very low open rate and a very, very low click rate. So the deliverability of your email is dependent on your emails getting through. And so you always want to make sure that you can check within a lot of email platforms what the deliverability rating for an individual is. So if you don't want to get flagged as spam, the key thing is to make sure that the right kind of people sign up for your emails. So you're actually sending emails to people who want it, right? You don't just buy, like some people, for example, will buy email lists and then start sending them emails. Don't ever do that, because your deliverability will drop through the floor because those people don't want your emails. They've been just added to it. But the other thing is to make sure you have a double opt-in. So now a double opt-in is, you've probably all seen this, where you sign up for an email, you type your email address into a box, and then it asks you to confirm your email. That's called a double opt-in. Now, this is not legally required by, for example, GDPR, which regulates a lot of online communication, but it's strongly recommended because a lot of people may type their email address in, or a bot may put an email address into a sign-up box, and then you start sending me an email, and then they don't read it, so your deliverability goes down. So double opt-ins are really important. So that's what I would focus on. And then just make sure you're always just testing the performance, like looking at the open and the click rate. If it gets too low, take the email out of rotation. That's what I would do. And then the other question from Evan is, do you really think that after years of operation that Fleming's and Newegg would use the tactic they do if it doesn't work? How do you know it's unsuccessful beyond I don't like it? Well, Evan, I think I mentioned in my session, I don't know. It probably is successful. I don't think any companies do things because I don't think they keep doing it if it didn't work to a degree. But this is, to me, the difference between short-term and long-term rewards. There are many of these marketing techniques that do work, but the problem I have with them is that I think it annoys the audience. And what I want to focus on is, how do I build a really amazing relationship with my audience that goes beyond just the email? It's the email is one piece, but it's the webinars and it's the training sessions and it's when you meet people at conferences and when people buy your books. To me, the relationship is everything. And I want to make sure that when I'm sending emails to people, that it's adding to that relationship. So, you know, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the technique of sending beautifully designed emails isn't going to work. It will work. What I'm saying is, I think that it will work, but it will work in a very utilitarian, transactional manner, as opposed to really building a strong relationship with an audience. But this is wonderful questions, Evan. I appreciate it, and I think that's everything in the questions.